We are here in the north of Spain, in the foothills of the Picos de Europa mountains, and I'm here because of an incredible historical character named Pelayo, whose story is virtually unknown to the English-speaking world. So this is Covadonga in Asturias, a place steeped in mythology and with a very unique history. Now it's a place of Catholic pilgrimage because of an apparition of the Virgin Mary, but once upon a time before the Christianization of Asturias, this exact place was also the site of worship of the Asturian water goddess Deva. Whether La Santina and the goddess Deva are one and the same depends on who you talk to. Around 1,300 years ago, this cave was a mostly forgotten place. Tucked into this remote valley and concealed within an ancient forest, it lay dormant, its guardian waiting to be visited by seekers as in the days of old. It was a time when Christian beliefs were reaching even remote valleys like these, although pagan practices still dominated due to the distance from the urban centers of early Christendom. This is evidenced by the fact that this cave was still a place of worship of the Asturian water goddess Deva in 711 AD, where our story begins. This recycling of ancient pagan sites was actually a fairly common occurrence throughout Christianized Europe. Even though ancient pagan belief systems were condemned by the Church, during the conversion many of the ancient pagan sites became churches, Catholic shrines, and sites where female deities were venerated became places where apparitions of the Virgin Mary were observed. For 250 years, the Visigoths had ruled in Iberia. They were a Germanic people who settled in the region and formed a kingdom which filled the power vacuum left by the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. But in 711 AD, Tariq ibn Ziyad crossed the Straits of Gibraltar with an army of 12,000 mounted Arabs and Berbers from North Africa. In Iberia, they came to be called Moors, and it's believed that a deposed Visigothic ruling family aided the Moorish army in the crossing and conspired with Tariq to overthrow the usurper Roderick, hoping to regain their throne. Due to betrayal among the Visigothic leadership, the Moorish army decimated the Visigoths at the Battle of Guadalete, killing King Roderick in the process. Pelayo, our protagonist, fought alongside the king at this battle and barely escaped with his life. After the battle, he fled north to his homeland, central Asturias, where he held the title of Lord. Having conquered the only substantial resistance in Iberia, the Moorish leadership decided to stay and conquer the entire peninsula for Allah. Their armies spread out, conquering and devouring the power vacuum at an alarming speed. In a few years' time, they were already at the northern Alpine passes of Asturias. As the Moors invaded central Asturias, Pelayo and other Visigoths who were also fleeing the Moorish advance were forced to flee east, deeper into the more remote mountain wilds of Asturias. During this time, Pelayo took refuge in the cave at Covadonga, the same one where the chapel and shrine of La Santina now sit, and he lived among the native mountain Asturians whose lives have changed little in thousands of years. I can only imagine that he must have been a very magnetic character, because during this time, Pelayo gained a loyal following of both native mountain warriors and Visigothic warriors. As the Moorish army forayed deeper into the mountains every year, Pelayo and his men realized that soon there would be nowhere left to hide in their beloved homeland. They began to set ambushes for the Moorish columns, waging a guerrilla war which delivered many devastating blows. They also attacked Moorish garrisons with great success, and were able to regain a small amount of territory. Stories of Pelayo and his men began to spread all around Iberia, and he soon had a massive price on his head. In 718 AD, a large Moorish force under General Alcama was sent to deal with Pelayo and his men once and for all. When Pelayo received word of the army that was on the way, he lured them into the narrow Covadonga valley, which he knew was a very defensible position. According to historical account, it is said that Pelayo had only 300 men, and the army pursuing him was in the thousands. As the Moors pursued them into Covadonga Valley, Pelayo's men shot countless arrows from the rocky slopes of the valley, and emerged from the forest to ambush the strung-out column of Moors. The result was an unlikely yet legendary Asturian victory and a bloody disaster for the Moorish army. When the native Asturians of the area heard about the victory and the substantially weakened Moorish army, they joined the fray in numbers and attacked the fleeing Moors until they were completely decimated. After this event, the Moors fled Asturias and never tried to take it again. Pelayo was proclaimed King of Asturias, and he set up his new capital in Cangas de Onís, the most important town nearby the location of his legendary victory. Pelayo is also considered to be the first king of Spain, as the Kingdom of Asturias gave birth to the various medieval Christian kingdoms of Iberia, and eventually the unified Kingdom of Spain. When he died, he was buried here in the shrine at Covadonga, in a cave within the cliff face. Most Asturians take pride in the fact that Asturias was the only region of Spain never conquered by the Moors. This lack of Moorish influence in the north is also a major contributor to the extreme diversity in culture from southern Spain to northern Spain. As this epic story has been passed down through the ages, the religious authorities chose to portray it in a way that suited their agenda, in the simplistic terms of a religious war, Christianity against Islam. Although some people in the conflict may have seen it this way, the reality was so much more beautifully complex. The Asturians in the Christian army for the most part still worshipped the old gods, as did the Berbers under the banner of Islam. The Berbers themselves were from the mountains of Morocco, where Islam had barely even penetrated. This less black and white view of history may not be as easy to retell or to comprehend, but I think it makes the story so much more interesting, as it reflects the same complex reality that we live in today.